Hey, it's Jeff Cannata with another NLB Mini. I had a chance last night to see The Raid 2. Very excited about this. I was a huge fan of The Raid. In fact, I went back and watched our old Totally Rad Show review of The Raid Redemption when it first came out. That was posted on April 2nd, 2012. And we were all super enthusiastic about that movie. I think it hit us like a ton of bricks. This is a brutal action franchise, and I was super excited to see the sequel. Even back then, they were talking about it being a trilogy right from the start. So this second one, carrying on from the main character story of the first one. But it really, having now seen The Raid 2, I am so impressed with how they seem to have taken this franchise and this story wildly forward. It's a much, much, much more ambitious movie than The Raid was. And The Raid was pretty ambitious, but it was simple. Beautifully simple, I would say. It's a very elegant premise, The Raid. Good guys go into the bad guys' hideout. So many bad guys there. They control the whole place. The good guys have to survive, and it's a massive war inside this structure. It takes place, I think, in one day. All hell breaks loose, chaos, so much fun, incredible action sequences, but you are right in it right from the start. All the story is kind of told through action, through putting these people in this situation. You don't get any setup. The Raid 2, none of that is the case. It's a much bigger scope. We are in many locations. We jump around in time. We find our hero in prison at the start, and we find out why he's there, and he's going to take down this huge cartel, and he's going to do it in a bunch of very convoluted, not convoluted, just complex, a very complex manner, pitting people against each other. An inner war starts. It's a lot of story. It's much more story-driven than The Raid was, I would say. The Raid is just die hard. It's start in a building, get out of that building alive if you can. Hundreds and hundreds of people will die. And I have to say, when The Raid 2 first started, I was a little disappointed because I thought the magic of The Raid was how we didn't have to wait around like you do in many action movies for the action to start. We didn't have that half an hour of setup. In fact, I even said that in my review of The Raid. We don't have that half an hour of figuring out who these people are and why we should care about them and putting all the pieces into place before all the action starts. The action just goes, and we are in it, and it is happening all around us, and we figure out who to trust and who to root for in the midst of that, rather than before it. Not the case with The Raid 2. With The Raid 2, you get tons of setup. It's almost you have to keep up with it because there's so much information being thrown at you of who these people are and how the inner workings of this criminal organization go and how our hero is going to infiltrate that and take it down. That while there are some action sequences fairly early on, it's really not a full-blown kung fu martial arts action film until, later on into the movie. Now, I have to say the drama, the story does hold up, and it is complex and it is interesting, but I thought the magic of that Raid franchise for me, because of that first movie, was that it was eschewing that convention and we were inside this chaos so quickly, and I was a little disappointed that the sequel didn't do the same. Clearly, the filmmakers were more ambitious this time and wanted to tell a grander tale, which they do. And there is a lot to like with The Raid. Once the action starts, there are sequence upon sequence upon sequence of stuff you've never seen before. Incredible. First of all, like The Raid, there are dozens and dozens of actors, stuntmen in this movie who just hurt themselves for your entertainment. I don't know how else they do the things they do. They're just injuring themselves, landing on pavement, hitting their heads on concrete slabs or tables. It is brutal and visceral and grisly and tough to watch at times. I mean, this is a pull no punches kind of action movie. You see when the person, usually in the movie, when you get a gun pointed to the head, it cuts to black and you just hear the gunshot. And we know, and in our heads, we know what happens. Not in The Raid 2. No, we see it. We stick there, we wait, we watch. the heads explode in gory viscera. It's intense, but you got to hand it to them. They are committed to making that kind of movie. And the sequences, I mean, my God, there's a sequence early on in the movie in the mud that it has all these one takes that are just going from fight to fight, and there's just chaos around dozens and dozens of guys in a massive fight in muddy, just covered in mud and hitting each other with, it's amazing. There's a car chase. Like, we didn't have much car stuff in the first Raid because it was so self-contained and so small in geography. Here, Raid 2, blowing the doors off, literally doors of cars blowing off, cameras going in from one car out to the next car, stuff I've never seen in a car chase, just jaw-dropping. I mean, the crowd that I watched the Raid 2 with were cheering, were going, oh no! I mean, cursing. It was a full body experience watching this movie, and a blast. I mean, that is the kind of thing you want from this kind of movie. When you sign up to go see people kicking the crap out of each other, nothing delivers like the Raid franchise. And this one is absolutely brutal and inventive. I don't want to spoil anything toward the end, but by the time we get to the end of this 2-hour-long movie, and they keep upping the stakes and upping the stakes and upping the stakes with these sequences, these action sequences that just get more and more incredible. By the end, the sort of big bad, the most deadly of the bad guys, when he faces off against our hero, and they have a one-on-one fight that must be 10 minutes long or more, and it is, I want someone to count the number of martial arts moves that happen in this fight, because it must be in the thousands. To choreograph and pull off that kind of thing with the camera choreography, it is a spectacle, and it is, I mean, worthy of audience applause, which it was awarded at the screening I was at. I mean, it is. This is, if you like martial arts films, you have to see the Raid 2. I hope you saw the first one. The biggest difference, I think, from the first one to the second one, other than the larger scale and more detailed story, is that the first one was much more a gun movie, much more about gunfights. There are some gunfights in the sequel, but this is much more a hand-to-hand action film. The Raid is the franchise that asks, why stab somebody one time when you can stab them 40 times? Because that's what happens in this movie. Stab, 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 stab. It is brutal and fun and wicked and violent. And if you're into that kind of thing and you can have fun with that and not get nauseated, which I'm sure some people would from the amount of gore that happens, this is the movie for you. I highly recommend the Raid 2. It is long, intense, brutal, an amazing martial arts experience. All the rumors you've heard about this movie are true. Hopefully you've seen the Raid 1. You don't need to have, by the way, I should point out, you don't need to have seen the Raid 1 to enjoy the Raid 2. It completely stands on its own. It's its own unique story. And the person that I went with last night hadn't seen the first one and thoroughly enjoyed it. So there you have it. Another great action film, and another reason to get excited about going to the movies as far as I'm concerned.